You were handed a story before you could speak, before you could walk, before you could ask questions. The world around you had already started filling you in. And you believed it. Of course you did. You were a child. Every child believes the world they are handed. But here's the part no one tells you. Most of what you were handed was wrong. Not wrong by accident. Wrong because the people who handed it to you had also been handed something wrong, and the people before them, a long, unbroken chain of inherited mistakes dressed up as wisdom, passed down like heirlooms no one ever thought to examine. So you grew up carrying weight you were never supposed to carry, believing things about yourself, about other people, about the way life works, that were never true to begin with. And the strangest part? You never questioned it, because when a lie is told to you early enough, it stops feeling like a lie. It starts feeling like reality. Think about the first time you felt jealous. You were maybe 4 or 5 years old. A friend had a toy you wanted, and something sharp moved through your chest. But here's what you did not know then. That feeling was not jealousy yet. It was just want. Pure, simple, innocent want. It was the world around you, the reaction of adults, the language you were given that turned that raw feeling into something with edges, into something that compared, into something that resented. Psychologist Paul Bloom at Yale University spent years studying the moral lives of babies. What he found should change the way you see everything. Infants, as young as 3 months old, show a clear preference for fairness, for helpers over hinderers, for kindness over cruelty. They were not taught this, they arrived with it. The capacity for empathy, for generosity, for basic goodness is not something civilization builds into you. It is something you were born with, and something, somewhere along the way, that civilization chips away. So where does it go? It gets covered. Layer by layer. The first layer is competition. From the time you enter a classroom, you are ranked. Your worth is assigned a number. You learn, without anyone saying it out loud, that other people's success is somehow a threat to your own, that there is only so much to go around, that life is a race and most people finish behind. You learn to see the person next to you not as a companion, but as a competitor, and you start to believe that this is just human nature, that people are fundamentally selfish, that rivalry is what drives progress. But here is what the research says. Studies by developmental psychologist Felix Warneken showed that children as young as 18 months old spontaneously help strangers without being asked, without being rewarded. No incentive, no praise, just the pure impulse to help. That impulse does not disappear on its own. It is educated out of you. The school that ranks you, the family that compares you to a cousin who got better grades, the culture that decided your value is your output, together they teach you that helpfulness is naive and competition is survival. But you were not born believing that. The second layer is fear of difference. Look at any group of young children playing. Watch how they approach someone who looks different, who speaks differently, who moves differently. The default is curiosity. Fascination even. A child who meets someone in a wheelchair does not feel pity. The child feels wonder. The child asks 100 questions because the child has not yet learned that difference is dangerous. That lesson comes later. It comes from overheard conversations, from the way adults tighten in certain neighborhoods, from the news left on in the background, from the joke that gets a laugh at the dinner table. Slowly, what was once curiosity becomes caution. And caution, over time, becomes fear. And fear, if it is never examined, becomes prejudice. Researcher Jane Elliott proved this in one of the most famous social experiments ever conducted. In 1968, she divided her third-grade class by eye color and told one group they were superior. Within hours, children who had been close friends were cruel to each other. Within a day, academic performance had shifted. The superior group scored better on tests. The inferior group made more errors. Nothing about these children had changed except the story they were told about themselves, and they believed it almost immediately, because children always believe the story they are told. Now imagine that experiment running not for 2 days, but for an entire childhood. The third layer, and perhaps the heaviest, is the story you were told about your emotions. You were too sensitive. Stop crying. Man up. Do not be so dramatic. These phrases seem small, they seem harmless, but what they are doing every single time they are spoken is teaching you to distrust your own interior life, to be ashamed of feeling, to perform strength rather than experience it. And so you learn to armor up, to push down, to go numb in places that were once alive. Psychiatrist Bessel spent decades studying how trauma lives in the body. What his research revealed is that when emotions are consistently suppressed rather than processed, they do not disappear. They take up residence in the nervous system. They express themselves as anxiety, as chronic pain, as a restlessness you cannot name. The body, as Kolk put it, keeps the score. It holds on to what the mind was trained to dismiss. All that feeling you were told not to feel did not go anywhere. It just went underground. And this is what makes the lies so insidious. They do not just change what you think, they change what you feel in your own body. Now look at the world around you, not society's version, the actual living world. Watch a dog greet a stranger. There is no calculation, no performance, no assessment of status or threat. There is just presence, unbridled, uncomplicated presence. Watch a group of crows at play. Actually play, sliding down snowy rooftops for no reason other than the joy of the slide. Watch an elephant stand over the bones of a family member for hours, touching them gently with its trunk. These animals were not taught grief. They were not taught joy. These things are native to them. And you were native to them once, too. Before the first comparison, before the first ranking, before the first time someone told you to toughen up, or calm down, or stop asking so many questions, before you learned that love was conditional, that worth was earned, that other people's pain was not your business, before all of that, you were something else entirely. You were open, you were connected, you were enough. The work of your life, if you choose to accept it, is not to become someone better, it is to unlearn someone lesser. To peel back the layers that were added to you by people who were themselves afraid, themselves confused, themselves carrying their own inherited wrongs. Unlearn the competition that told you someone else's success diminishes yours, because the evidence says the opposite. People who practice what psychologist Adam Grant calls being a giver, someone who adds value to others without keeping score, consistently end up with more trust, more creativity, more long-term success. Unlearn the fear that taught you difference is dangerous. The science of contact theory, developed by Gordon Allport in the 1950s and validated hundreds of times since, shows that meaningful connection with people different from you is the single most reliable way to dissolve prejudice. Not lectures, not policy. Contact. The same thing you naturally sought as a child, before you were taught not to. Unlearn the armor that told you feeling is weakness, because the people who live longest, sleep best, recover fastest, and report the deepest satisfaction in their lives are not the ones who felt the least, they are the ones who allowed themselves to feel and were not destroyed by it. The lies you grew up believing were not placed there by monsters. They were placed there by people who were also believing lies. That does not make them harmless. It makes them worth examining. It makes the act of questioning them not an act of rebellion, but an act of recovery. You were handed a story before you could speak, before you could walk, before you could ask questions. But you can ask them now, and the asking, it turns out, is where the real story begins.